The first thing my son did when he walked into the most dangerous mafia club in the city was ask the bartender where he could find his father. I did not know he was gone yet. I was 3 blocks away, standing behind the counter of the small print shop where I worked under a name that was not mine, arguing with my landlord over a late payment while my phone vibrated unanswered in my pocket. By the time I saw the school's message, 9-year-old Eli had been missing for 23 minutes. His backpack was still in the classroom. His teacher said he had left through the side gate with a folded piece of paper in his hand. I knew what paper it was before she finished speaking. That morning, I had found my bedroom drawer open. The old photograph was gone. The one with half the image burned away, leaving only my younger face, a black car, and the silver crest of Dante Moretti's club stamped on the back. 7 years earlier, Dante had destroyed my family. Then I hid his son from him. Now that son had walked straight into his club. I ran so hard my lungs burned. I called Eli 6 times. On the 7th, someone answered, but no one spoke. I heard music beneath the silence, low bass and the clink of glass. Then a man said, "Who gave you this number?" The voice was deep, controlled, and instantly familiar. My body stopped before my feet did. I nearly fell into traffic. Dante. I had spent 7 years trying to forget that voice. It had once said my name like a promise. Later, it had ordered me into a car while my family's home burned behind us. "Put my son on the phone," I said. The silence changed. "Your son." I heard movement, then Eli's frightened breath. "Dad." Relief hit so hard it hurt. "Eli, listen to me. Do not move. Do not tell anyone anything. I'm coming." "He already told me his name," Dante said. His calm was worse than anger. "And he walked into my club carrying something that belongs to me." The call ended. At the Black Crown, 2 guards blocked the entrance before I reached the door. They wore dark suits and the same silver wolf crest that had been pressed into the back of the photograph. One guard touched his earpiece, looked at my face, and immediately stepped aside. That frightened me more than being stopped. They had been told to expect me. Inside, the afternoon club was nearly empty, but every person had turned toward the center of the room. Eli sat on a leather chair too large for him, his red sneakers dangling above the floor. He looked small beneath the red neon crown on the wall. Dante stood in front of him. He had changed since I last saw him. Harder around the mouth, silver beginning at one temple, but the room still bent around him. Men twice his size waited for permission to breathe. Eli held my burned photograph in both hands. Dante held a silver cufflink beside it. The crest matched. "Dad," Eli said, jumping down. I crossed the room and pulled him against me. I checked his face, his arms, the back of his neck. No bruises. No blood. "I told you never to leave school alone. I wanted to know why you kept this hidden," he whispered. "And why that man has my eyes." The room went still. Dante's gaze moved from Eli to me. My son had my dark hair and my narrow face, but his eyes were Dante's, gray, almost colorless, with a black ring around the iris. I had spent years pretending that resemblance was not a confession. Dante crouched, bringing himself level with Eli. He did not touch him. "How old are you?" he asked. I stepped between them. "We're leaving." Dante rose slowly. "How old?" 9. Eli answered before I could stop him. Something cold entered Dante's expression. He looked at me with the precision of a man calculating dates. 9 years old. Born 8 months after the last night we spent together. Behind the bar, a young man lowered his phone too quickly. I saw the camera screen before it vanished. Eli's face, Dante beside him, the silver crest between them. "Delete that," Dante said without looking away from me. The bartender's color drained. "Boss, 2 guards seized him. His phone hit the floor. A message was still sending. The image had already gone somewhere. Dante picked up the phone and read the destination. For the first time, his control cracked. "Lock the doors." Metal shutters dropped over the windows. Bolts slammed into place. Eli gripped my coat. Every exit disappeared. "You're scaring him," I said. "Good," Dante replied. "Fear may keep him alive." He turned the phone toward me. The photograph of our son had been sent to a contact saved only as Orsini. I knew that name. Everyone in the city did. The Morettis and the Orsinis had buried men over less than a rumor of an heir. No one knew he existed, I said. "Someone does now." Dante's eyes fell to Eli again, and the look on his face was not tenderness. It was recognition sharpened into rage. "You hid him from me. I protected him from you." His jaw tightened. "Around us, Armed men moved toward every door. The club no longer felt like a room. It felt like a trap closing one lock at a time. Dante stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. If that boy is mine, the Orsinis will not see a child. They will see the only weakness I have ever given them. He is not yours. It was the lie that had kept us alive for 9 years. Dante looked at Eli's eyes, the photograph, then the date printed on the back. Then tell me why he came here asking for his father. Before I could answer, one of the guards hurried across the room and handed Dante a second phone. His face had gone pale. Boss, the image was forwarded outside the city. And there's something else. Dante read the new message. His expression emptied. He turned the screen toward me. Beneath Eli's photograph were 6 words. We found the survivor's hidden son. Dante looked up. They don't think he's only my son, he said. They know who your family was. Dante did not ask whether the message was real. He handed Eli's photograph to a guard and ordered every camera feed from the last hour copied before anyone could erase it. No calls leave this building, he said. No vehicles move without my approval. I tightened my arms around Eli. We're not staying. You stopped having that option when someone identified him as a survivor's son. Dante turned the phone toward me again. The message had come through an encrypted relay, but a second image was attached beneath it. My stomach dropped. It showed Eli leaving school less than an hour earlier. The angle was high, taken from across the street. Someone had been watching him before he ever reached the club. A timestamp ran across the bottom. 11:43. Eli had left through the side gate at 11:46. They knew where he was before I did. I whispered. Dante's face hardened. Which means the club was not the beginning. One of his men approached carrying a tablet. Security footage filled the screen. Eli appeared outside the Black Crown, alone, staring at the silver crest above the entrance. A black sedan rolled past him once, then again. On the third pass, it stopped at the corner. No one got out. Zoom in, Dante said. The plate was obscured, but a white emblem had been painted near the rear wheel. A crown split by a red line. Orsini. The consequence of my secret was already moving through the city on 4 wheels. Dante ordered his people to trace the car. I grabbed Eli's hand. We're leaving through the kitchen. That route is compromised. Every route is compromised because of you. Dante stepped closer, but this time he did not touch me or block my path. Because of me, there are 40 armed men between your son and whoever followed him from school. And because of you, they want him. Eli looked between us. Dad, who are the Orsinis? I hated the fear in his voice. I hated Dante more for being right. People who think hurting one person can control another, I said. Like him? Eli asked, looking at Dante. The question landed harder than any accusation I could have made. Dante's eyes shifted away first. Then the lights went out. The music died. For 1 second, the club became completely silent. A sharp crack came from the front entrance. Not a gunshot. Glass breaking under pressure. Red emergency lights flickered on, washing the room in blood-colored shadows. Dante moved before anyone else. He pulled Eli behind the marble bar and covered him with his own body as 2 bullets punched through the metal shutter where my son had been standing moments earlier. The room exploded into motion. Guards drew weapons. Someone shouted that the east camera grid was dead. Another shot struck the ceiling. Plaster rained across the bottles. I dropped beside Eli and pressed his head against my chest. Dante stayed between us and the entrance, one hand braced against the floor, the other holding a pistol. This is what your protection looks like. I shouted. No, he said. This is what happens when someone inside gives them the blind spot. That was new. The attackers had not guessed where to shoot. They knew. A guard slid behind the bar and handed Dante a small receiver. The east grid was disabled with an internal command, boss. Your authorization tier. Dante looked toward the men spread across the club. No one moved. No one breathed. The danger was no longer only outside. One of the people protecting us had opened the door. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Tires screamed beyond the shutters. A few seconds later, the main lights returned. Dante rose and ordered the doors checked. I kept Eli down until he whispered that my grip hurt. I released him immediately. A thin cut crossed Dante's cheek where broken glass had struck him. Eli noticed it too. Without thinking, he pulled a tissue from his pocket and held it out. Dante stared at the small white square as if it were something dangerous. Then he accepted it. That simple movement frightened me in a different way. Eli was already responding to him, not as a stranger, not as a monster from one of my warnings, as someone who had just shielded him from bullets. Dante pressed the tissue to his cheek and looked at me. You can hate me after he is safe. I have managed his safety for 9 years. Someone photographed him at school. Someone knew he would come here. And someone used my authorization to create a firing lane. His voice stayed low, but the accusation was clear. My system had failed. His had been betrayed. Neither of us could protect Eli alone. A guard recovered a small device taped beneath a table near the entrance. It was not a bomb. It was a short-range transmitter that had copied every phone connecting to the club network. My phone was among them. So was the school's number. Dante studied the connection log. They did not follow him from school, he said. They were waiting for him to leave. I looked at Eli. Who knew you were coming here? He shook his head quickly. No. 1. How did you find the address? Dante asked. Eli hesitated, then reached inside his jacket and pulled out another folded paper. Not the burned photograph. This one was a printout from my home computer. Across the top was an old email I had never sent, written the night my family died. Dante took it from him. His eyes moved across the page, then stopped. I knew the line he had found. If I disappear, Dante Moretti is the reason. You searched my files, I said. Eli's chin trembled. I wanted to know why you wake up screaming his name. The room seemed to narrow around us. Dante looked at me, but I refused to meet his eyes. One of his men returned with the bartender's phone sealed in a plastic evidence sleeve. We traced the first transmission, he said. It did not go directly to Orsini. Dante's expression changed. Where did it go? The guard swallowed. To an internal server registered to the Moretti estate. Dante took the phone. A second message appeared before he could unlock it. This one contained no photograph. Only an address and a countdown beginning at 59 minutes. Beneath it were 8 words. Bring the survivor and the boy, or we burn the truth. Dante turned the screen toward me. The address was not an Orsini safe house. It was the abandoned Moretti archive where records from the night my family died had been sealed for 7 years. And the access code attached to the message belonged to Dante's own second-in-command. Dante's second-in-command was waiting for us at the archive, but he had been dead for at least an hour. Marco Bellini sat upright behind the reception desk with his hands folded neatly over his chest, as if someone had arranged him for a photograph. A single bullet hole marked the center of his white shirt. His phone lay beside him, still counting down. 41 minutes remained. Dante stopped so suddenly, I nearly walked into him. For the first time since Eli entered the club, the control left his face completely. Marco would never betray me, he said. Then someone wanted us to believe he did. I kept Eli behind me while Dante checked the body. Marco's right hand was clenched around a brass key, but the blood beneath his fingernails was fresh. He had fought to keep it. Dante reached for the key. I caught his wrist. No, we do this my way. His eyes lifted to mine. 7 years ago, he would have ignored me. This time, he released Marco's hand and stepped back. That small surrender changed something between us. Not trust. Not yet. But for the first time, he treated my fear as information instead of resistance. I used the edge of my sleeve to take the key. A number had been scratched into the brass. 314. The archive directory listed only 2 floors. There is no room 314, Dante said. A speaker crackled above us. The voice that came through had been electronically distorted. 39 minutes. After that, the surviving record burns with the rest. Red lights came on along the corridor, leading deeper into the building. The antagonistic force was not hiding anymore. It was guiding us. Dante ordered 2 guards to secure Eli near the entrance. I refused before he finished. Someone used your authorization, killed your second-in-command, and brought us into your building. I'm not leaving my son with anyone wearing your crest. Eli squeezed my hand. Dante looked at the remaining men, then removed the pistol from inside his jacket and held it out to me. Grip first. Then you carry this. I stared at it. You trust me with a gun? No, he said. I trust what you will do for him. I took it. The balance of power shifted again. Dante still knew the building, but I now held the weapon and the only person I trusted. We followed the red lights through rows of sealed cabinets. Dust coated everything except a narrow trail across the floor. Someone had moved through here recently, dragging a heavy case. At the end of the trail stood a wall of framed portraits. One frame hung crooked. Behind it was a keypad marked with 3 blank fields. Eli pointed to the brass key. 314. The code opened a hidden elevator. Room 314 was not a room. It was a level beneath the archive. The elevator descended farther than the building should have allowed. My ears popped. Dante watched the floor display, but the numbers had been removed. When the doors opened, cold air rolled over us. Metal. Shelves stretched into darkness, filled with black evidence boxes labeled by date instead of name. The night my family died appeared again and again across an entire row. Dante moved toward it, but I noticed something on the nearest box first. My family crest had been stamped beside the Moretti wolf. Not beneath it. Beside it. Equal size. What was my family to yours? I asked. Dante did not answer quickly enough. That was an answer by itself. Your father controlled the financial records for 3 families, he finally said. Including mine. You told me he was only an accountant. That was what he wanted you to believe. A new piece of truth settled into place, and it made the danger larger. My family had not been destroyed because I loved Dante. We had been removed because we knew something. Eli reached toward one of the boxes. I stopped him, but his fingers had already disturbed the dust. Beneath it, someone had written a message in dried blood. He signed nothing. Dante went still. I opened the box. Inside were photographs of the burned house, payment records to Orsini gunmen, and a copy of the extermination order. Dante's name appeared at the bottom. My vision narrowed. You signed it? No. He took the page, then turned it toward the light. That is my seal, not my signature. A seal could be stolen. A seal could be copied. But the payment authorization carried a timestamp from 2:17 a.m. Dante had been with me then. I remembered because at 2:17, he had forced me into his car while the flames rose behind us. He could not have approved the transfer from the Moretti estate. Someone had used his authority while he was saving me. That should have made me feel relief. It did not. It only opened a worse question. Why had he been there before the attack ended? Eli found a small digital recorder beneath the photographs. Its battery was almost dead. Dante pressed play. Static filled the room, followed by my father's voice. If you're hearing this, the council discovered the ledger. Dante does not know the full plan. Do not trust the man standing closest to him. The recording cut off. One of the shelves behind us clicked. A timer appeared on the wall. 10 minutes. The archive had begun a purge cycle. Steel doors started closing across the aisles. Dante grabbed the evidence box. I lifted Eli and ran. As we reached the elevator, a monitor came alive beside it. Security footage showed Marco entering the archive earlier that morning. He was not alone. A tall man walked beside him, his face hidden until he turned toward the camera. I recognized him from Dante's private office years ago, the man who had always stood at his right hand before Marco took the position. Dante stared at the screen. My uncle, he said. The footage continued. His uncle placed the brass key in Marco's hand, raised the gun, and fired. Then he looked directly into the camera and spoke without distortion. If the survivor found the boy, bring them both to me. A second file opened automatically. It was dated 7 years earlier. The image showed my father being dragged alive from the burning house 3 hours after Dante had told me no one survived. The archive began sealing itself before we reached the elevator. Steel shutters slammed across the aisles behind us, cutting off the evidence room section by section. Dante shoved the black box into my arms, pulled Eli against his side, and fired twice into the elevator control panel when the doors refused to open. Sparks burst from the metal. The display went dark. Stairs, he said. A siren changed pitch above us. The purge was no longer deleting files. It was flooding the lower level with fire-suppressant gas. White vapor spilled from vents near the ceiling. Eli coughed once, then harder. Dante wrapped his coat around the boy's face and forced open a maintenance door hidden behind the shelves. The narrow stairwell beyond it climbed toward the street, but a red light flashed over the lock. Someone had sealed it from outside. The consequences of finding the truth were no longer theoretical. We had evidence in our hands, a child struggling to breathe, and less than 4 minutes before the room became unlivable. Dante handed me his second magazine. Keep Eli behind you. What are you doing? Opening the door. He stepped back and fired into the hinges. The first shot barely marked the reinforced steel. The second cracked the upper plate. The third ricocheted, cutting across his shoulder. He staggered, but kept shooting. I set the evidence box down, pressed Eli against the wall, and joined him. 2 weapons. 12 rounds. The lower hinge tore free. Dante drove his injured shoulder into the door. It opened just wide enough for Eli to crawl through. I pushed the box after him, then squeezed into the gap. Dante came last. The moment he cleared it, the stairwell door slammed shut behind us. His blood streaked the handle. We emerged into an alley behind the archive and found Dante's cars burning. All 3. Flames climbed from the engines, and every tire had been slashed before the fuel was lit. His guards were gone. Not dead. Gone. A phone inside Dante's pocket began ringing. The screen showed no number. He answered on speaker. His uncle's voice was calm. "You always did choose the wrong person to save." Dante's expression hardened. "Where is Samuel?" My father's name struck me like a hand across the face. "Alive," his uncle said. "For now. Bring the box and the boy to the Moretti estate before midnight. Come with the survivor if you wish. Come with an army if you are foolish. But if a single file leaves that box, Samuel dies first." The call ended. I stared at Dante. "You knew my father might be alive?" "I knew there was no body." "That is not the same answer." He looked at the burning cars instead of me. "No, it isn't." A black SUV appeared at the mouth of the alley. I raised the pistol, but the driver stopped 20 feet away and opened the rear door. One of Marco's men stepped out with both hands visible. "Boss, the club was hit again. They took the security servers and burned the office. The Orsinis are moving men toward the east side. The attack had spread while we were underground. My hidden life was gone. Dante's club was compromised. Marco was dead. And now my father's survival had become a bargaining chip. "Where can we go?" I asked. The man hesitated. "Not the club. Not the estate. We don't know who is loyal." Dante looked at me. "You're home. They already know where we live. Then we go before they do." We reached my apartment 6 minutes too late. The front door hung from one hinge. The landlord stood across the hall shouting into his phone, but he stopped when Dante entered with blood on his shirt and a gun in his hand. Inside, every drawer had been emptied. Eli's school records were gone. His birth certificate was gone. The lockbox beneath my bed had been forced open. They had taken the emergency cash, the passports, and every document connected to the name we had used for 9 years. Someone had even removed the framed photograph from Eli's bedside table. Not a single television or piece of jewelry was missing. They had not robbed us. They had erased us. Eli stood in the middle of his room, staring at the empty space where his photographs had been. "Are we moving again?" he asked. I wanted to lie. I had built our life from lies because I believed each one bought another day of safety. Now those lies lay scattered across the floor like broken glass. "Yes," I said, "but not the way we did before." Dante remained near the doorway, giving us space despite the urgency. His wound had soaked through his sleeve. Eli noticed and brought him the small first aid kit from the bathroom. "Sit down," he said. Dante almost smiled. Almost. He obeyed. While Eli cleaned the cut with shaking hands, Dante did not correct him or take over. He let the boy help. Watching them made something inside me tighten. The resemblance was no longer only in their eyes. It was in the way they hid fear by becoming useful. A dark sedan stopped outside. Dante's remaining guard looked through the blinds. "We have company." 3 men entered the building carrying no visible weapons. That made them more dangerous, not less. One showed a federal badge to the landlord. Another carried a sealed envelope. They did not knock. The apartment door opened, and the lead man looked directly at Eli. "We have a court order authorizing protective custody of the minor," he said. "There is evidence his current guardian used fraudulent documents and concealed him from his biological father." The pressure shifted instantly. Running would make me look guilty. Fighting would put Eli in the middle. Dante rose, but I stepped in front of him. "Let me see the order." The document used Eli's real birth date. It listed Dante Moretti as the alleged father. At the bottom was a laboratory reference number. A DNA test had already been processed. My hands went cold. "That's impossible." The agent opened the envelope and placed the report on the table. Dante's probability of paternity was listed at 99.99%. Eli looked from the page to Dante. "So he is my father?" No one answered quickly enough. The agent did. "Yes." The biggest secret of my life had just been confirmed by strangers inside my ruined home. Then I saw the collection date on the report. The sample had not been taken today. It had been collected 7 years earlier, 2 days after Eli was born. Beneath the laboratory seal was the name of the person who submitted it. Samuel Vale. My father. He had known Dante was Eli's father from the beginning, and according to the attached custody petition, he had been preparing to give my son to the Moretti family before our house ever burned. The men with federal badges were not federal agents. Dante proved it by asking the lead man for the emergency verification code printed on every protective custody order in the state. The man reached inside his code instead. Dante moved first. He drove the table into the agent's knees, knocked the weapon from his hand, and pinned him against the wall before the other two could draw. I pulled Eli behind the kitchen counter as Dante's remaining guard disarmed them. The custody order slid across the floor and stopped at my feet. The seal was false. The DNA report was not. Who sent you? Dante asked. The man smiled through a split lip. The person who has been protecting that boy since the day he was born. My father's name was printed on the report, but the submission signature did not match the one I remembered. I had watched Samuel Vale sign school forms, birthday cards, and checks at the kitchen table for most of my childhood. His letters leaned sharply to the right. This signature was upright, careful, almost mechanical. Forged. Dante searched the man's code and found a small audio device already transmitting. He crushed it beneath his heel, but the damage was done. Someone had heard the DNA confirmation. Someone now knew exactly where we were. We leave now, Dante said. No, I lifted the custody petition. You knew about this. His face gave me the answer before he spoke. Not the petition. The test. Eli looked up at him. Dante's silence became a confession. You knew he was yours? I asked. I knew there was a child. The room tilted. For how long? Since before the fire. The words struck harder than the gunshots at the club. Dante ordered his guard to take the fake agents into the hall, then closed the broken door. He placed his phone on the table and opened a file protected by his thumbprint. A video appeared. The date was 3 days before my family's house burned. My father stood in Dante's office, younger and uninjured, holding the same black evidence box we had taken from the archive. The council found the ledger, Samuel said on the recording. They know my family copied it. They know Adrian is carrying your child. My breath stopped. Dante's uncle entered the frame. He looked directly at my father and said, Then the child belongs to the Moretti line. We secure the heir. The rest are liabilities. The video ended. My father was not giving Eli to your family, I said slowly. He was warning you they planned to take him. Dante nodded once. Samuel asked me to move you both before the council acted. Both? You and the baby. And my family? His jaw tightened. He wanted everyone extracted. I told him moving that many people would expose the plan. The truth arrived in pieces, each one worse than the last. Dante had known. My father had asked for help. And Dante had reduced my family to a calculation. So you chose me. I chose the 2 people I believed I could save. You chose the people who belonged to you. He flinched, but he did not deny it. That changed everything. He had not ordered the massacre. He had not forged the DNA report. But he had known the danger and accepted the deaths of everyone else as the price of protecting me and his unborn son. The villain I had hated for 7 years was not innocent. He was worse in a different way. He had loved me and still allowed my family to become expendable. Eli stepped away from both of us. You knew about me before I was born? Dante lowered himself to one knee, but he kept his distance. I knew you existed. I did not know you survived. Why didn't you look for me? I did. Dante opened another file. Search records filled the screen. Hospitals, border crossings, private investigators, missing person reports under dozens of names. The final page contained a death certificate for me and an infant male. Both documents carried my uncle's authorization. The council gave me bodies from the fire, Dante said. 1 adult, 1 newborn. The DNA was falsified. I believed you were dead. A major open loop closed, but the answer opened something larger. If Dante's uncle had gone to such lengths to convince him we were dead, then hiding Eli had never been my decision alone. Someone inside the Moretti organization had been maintaining our disappearance. The fake agent laughed from the hallway. He still doesn't understand. Dante pulled him back into the apartment. Understand what? The man looked at Eli. The boy was never hidden from us. He nodded toward the DNA report. We have had his blood since the day he was born. Samuel made sure of that. My anger shifted toward the one person I had spent 7 years mourning. My father submitted the real sample. Yes, the man said, because Samuel was not trying to keep the boy from the Morettis. He was trying to prove which Moretti had a legal claim before the council could choose one for him. Dante went still. Choose one. The man's smile widened. You think this is about paternity. It is about succession. He explained just enough to make the danger clear. My father's ledger did not only track illegal payments. It recorded a private agreement among the old families. If Dante died without a publicly recognized heir, control of the Moretti network would pass to his uncle. But if a blood heir existed, the uncle's claim disappeared. Eli had never been hunted because he was Dante's weakness. He was being hunted because his existence could strip Dante's uncle of everything. The attack on my family had not been designed to punish me for loving Dante. It had been designed to erase the one child who could change the balance of power. Then why keep my father alive? I asked. The fake agent looked at the black evidence box. Because Samuel encrypted the succession ledger. Only he can open it. A phone began ringing inside the man's pocket. Dante answered it. His uncle appeared on the screen, standing beside my father. Samuel was older, thinner, and chained to a chair, but alive. His eyes found mine through the camera. Adrian, he said, voice breaking. Do not bring Eli here. A gun pressed against his temple. Dante's uncle leaned into view. Midnight was a courtesy. You now have 30 minutes. Bring the boy and the box, or Samuel dies, and every copy of the ledger disappears. The screen went black. I looked at Dante. 30 minutes earlier, my only goal had been to get Eli away from him. Now the truth had changed the shape of the war. We were not running from a father trying to claim his son. We were standing between a child and a man who had built his future on that child's death. We are not trading Eli, I said. Dante's eyes met mine. Then we stopped running. For the first time, I agreed. Our new goal was no longer to hide my son from the Moretti family. It was to use the proof of who he was to destroy the part of that family that had been hunting him since before he was born. The first consequence of learning the truth was that Dante lost control of his own organization before we even left my apartment. His phone began vibrating with alerts from every district he controlled. Accounts frozen. Safe houses emptied. 2 captains refusing orders. His uncle had moved faster than we had. By naming Eli as a blood heir inside the council network, he had forced every loyal man to choose a side before Dante could explain anything. He is splitting the family, Dante said. No, he is making them show you what they were always loyal to. I took the black evidence box from the table and handed Dante the pistol he had given me at the archive. We have 27 minutes. Tell me what can open that ledger. He looked at me differently then. Not as someone to move, hide, or command. As the person setting the objective. Samuel's voice sprint and a physical key, he said. The key is probably inside the box. Eli had been silent since seeing my father on the screen. He stood near the broken doorway with his arms wrapped around himself. Grandpa knew about me, he said. He knew all of this happened because of me. I crossed the room and knelt in front of him. None of this happened because of you. But I went to the club. The adults who built this system caused it. Not you. I made him look at me. You did not create their choices. Dante remained several feet away. He did not interrupt. That restraint mattered more than any promise he could have made. The fake agents had stopped cooperating, so Dante changed tactics. He ordered his guard to release one of them into the hallway with a working phone and a false message. The box had been destroyed in the archive purge. The man sent it immediately. 30 seconds later, an encrypted call reached Dante's uncle. The reaction came fast. The countdown disappeared from our phones. A new video replaced it. My father was being moved, not executed. The bluff had worked. He needs the ledger, I said. More than he needs us dead. For now, Dante replied. The antagonistic force had adapted. His uncle was no longer demanding a trade at the estate. He was moving Samuel to an unknown location and calling an emergency succession vote within the hour. If the council declared Eli's claim invalid before we produced the ledger, Dante's uncle would take control legally, and every Moretti asset would become available to hunt us. The objective changed again. We no longer had only 30 minutes to save my father. We had less than an hour to prove Eli's identity, unlock the ledger, and stop the vote. Dante opened the black box. Inside the lid was a narrow slot shaped like the brass key Marco had died protecting. I inserted it. A hidden compartment released beneath the evidence files. There was no second key inside. There was a child's hospital bracelet, yellowed with age. Eli Vale. Date of birth. A smear of dried blood crossed the plastic. Beside it rested a small flash drive marked with my father's initials. Dante connected it to an offline tablet. The drive contained only one file, a recording of a lullaby my father used to sing when I was young. That is not evidence, Dante said. It is a key. My father had never trusted digital locks alone. The melody's notes corresponded to numbers he used in family bookkeeping. I entered the sequence. The ledger opened halfway, revealing a list of payments, council votes, and sealed succession clauses. Then the screen demanded live voice authorization from Samuel. We had the truth in our hands, but not enough to expose it. A red marker flashed beside one entry dated the day Eli was born. The payment came from Dante's uncle to the hospital nurse who collected the DNA sample. Another payment went to the official who forged our deaths. A third went to a private transport company that had moved my father after the fire. The company was still operating. I read the current address aloud. Dante shook his head. Too obvious. Eli stepped closer to the tablet. That is not where they took Grandpa. How do you know? I asked. He pointed to the video his uncle had sent. Behind my father's chair was a painted blue stripe and a warning sign shaped like a triangle. That is from the old train tunnels. We learned about them at school. The walls are marked by line color. Dante pulled up a city transit map. The blue maintenance line ran beneath the Moretti estate and continued toward the river, where the council's private meeting hall stood above an abandoned station. My son had found what all of Dante's men had missed. Dante immediately began issuing orders, but I stopped him after the first call. How many of those people can you trust? His silence answered me. Then no army, I said. A small team. No Moretti channels. No estate vehicles. You are asking me to enter a council stronghold without my men. I am telling you that your men are how your uncle keeps finding us. Anger flashed across his face, then disappeared. He handed me his phone. Choose who comes. It was the clearest power shift yet. I selected Marco's guard, the only man who had acted without waiting for council approval, and no one else. Dante accepted it without argument. Before we left, he removed the silver wolf crest from his lapel and placed it on the table. Eli watched him. Does that mean you are not the boss anymore? Dante looked at the crest, then at his son. It means being the boss is not the most important thing I have to do tonight. We moved through the service stairs while the landlord argued with police in the hall. At the rear exit, I found a folded note taped beneath the railing. Eli's handwriting covered the front. My heart stopped until he explained he had placed it there earlier when we arrived. You told me to leave signs if I ever thought someone was following us. Inside, he had drawn a crown split by a red line, then copied 3 numbers from the black sedan outside the club. Marco's guard checked the plate against a private transport registry. The vehicle belonged to the same company listed in the ledger. Eli had not only led us to the club, he had been leaving evidence from the moment he sensed danger. The registry showed the sedan entering the blue tunnel 12 minutes earlier. My father was there. So was Dante's uncle. And the emergency council vote had already begun. As we reached the vehicle that would take us to the tunnels, every phone in the city received the same public alert. A photograph of Eli appeared beneath the Moretti crest. The message named him a fraudulent claimant whose guardian had murdered Marco Bellini and stolen classified family records. My face appeared beside his. Dante's uncle had turned us from hidden targets into wanted enemies. The new objective was no longer simply to reach the council before the vote. We had to cross a city now hunting us, enter a fortress without Dante's army, rescue the only man who could unlock the ledger, and prove the truth before the council gave our enemy legal control of every weapon pointed at my son. By the time we reached the blue tunnel, Dante's uncle had already turned the council against us and placed my father on his knees in front of them. The vote was being broadcast through the Moretti network. Every screen in the maintenance corridor showed the same image: Samuel Vale beneath a white spotlight, wrists bound, while 12 council members sat behind a curved steel table. Dante's uncle stood beside him with one hand on his shoulder. The fraudulent heir and his guardian have stolen family records, murdered Marco Bellini, and conspired with the Orsinis, he announced. Dante Moretti is compromised. His authority must be transferred immediately. A digital count appeared beneath the broadcast. 7 votes were required. He already had 5. The tunnel door locked behind us. Red warning lights began flashing, and steel barriers dropped across both exits. Dante's uncle had not merely tracked us. He had allowed us inside. Motion sensors, Marco's guard said. He knows exactly where we are. A speaker above us came alive. Dante, his uncle said, his voice echoing through the tunnel. Leave the survivor and the boy. Walk into the council chamber alone, and I may let you keep your name. Dante looked at the camera mounted over the tracks. You killed Marco. Marco chose sentiment over order. Just as you did. A mechanical sound rolled through the tunnel. Far behind us, an abandoned maintenance train powered on. Its headlights appeared around the curve and began moving toward us. The track was too narrow to avoid it. We ran. Eli's hand slipped inside mine as the train gained speed, steel screaming against steel. Dante reached a service gate first and shot the lock, but the mechanism held. The headlights filled the tunnel. Marco's guard threw his shoulder against the gate. Nothing. Then Eli pulled the brass key from my coat pocket. The archive key, he said. A narrow slot was hidden beneath the keypad. The key turned. The gate released 3 seconds before the train reached us. We fell through and slammed it shut. The train tore past, close enough to pull Dante's coat against the bars. His uncle's voice returned. Samuel designed every emergency route in that system. Did you really think I would not know which one he gave his grandson? The statement changed the danger again. My father had not only left us clues. Someone had been studying how he protected us. Every escape plan could already be compromised. On the broadcast, a 6th council member raised his hand. 1 vote remained. We entered an old signal room beneath the meeting hall. Above us, voices vibrated through the ceiling. My father was less than 50 feet away, but the only stairwell was guarded by men carrying Moretti rifles. Dante checked the weapon he had left. For rounds. Marco's guard had 6. I had the black box, the locked ledger, and no way to make the council listen. We used the service lift, Dante said. It opens behind the council table. And your uncle expects that. He expects me to come for Samuel. Dante looked at Eli. He may not expect me to leave with neither. The meaning reached me instantly. No, Adrian. If I enter alone, he will focus every guard on me. You take Eli in the box through the river exit, and let him execute you and my father. You wanted your son away from me. This is the only opening you may get. It was the cruelest version of protection he had offered yet. Sacrifice disguised as choice. Part of me wanted to accept it. Eli would live. That had been my goal for 9 years. But the ledger would remain locked without my father. Dante's uncle would win the vote, and we would spend the rest of our lives running from an organization with legal control of every Moretti asset. That is not a plan, I said. It is you deciding again who gets sacrificed. Dante went silent. The words struck the deepest fracture between us. He slowly lowered his gun. Then you decide. He handed me the control device for the service lift. His men, his building, his father's organization, and he gave me the choice. Trust did not erase what he had done 7 years ago. But this time, when the cost became unbearable, he did not make the decision for me. I studied the signal board. 3 systems fed the council chamber: security, emergency power, and broadcast. The public alert naming us fugitives had proven his uncle controlled the network. But the old railway emergency line operated separately. Can this transmit outside the Moretti system? I asked. Marco's guard examined the board. To every emergency receiver in the city. Police, fire, transit. Maybe news stations if the frequency is open. A new objective formed. We did not need to convince a sealed council. We needed to make secrecy impossible. Before we could connect the ledger, the broadcast above us changed. Dante's uncle dragged my father closer to the camera and placed a gun against his temple. The final vote will be cast in 5 minutes, he said. If Dante does not surrender the child before then, Samuel dies. Eli covered his mouth. My father lifted his head. His eyes were swollen, but his voice remained steady. Adrian, listen to me. The lullaby is not only the password. The last note identifies the witness. The feed cut before he could say more. I opened the recording on the tablet. The melody ended on a note that did not belong. Eli recognized it first. That is not how Grandpa sang it. The altered note corresponded to a ledger entry. We opened it. A list of payments appeared, followed by a sealed video file. The witness named beside it was Marco Bellini. Marco had recorded a statement before his death. He had known Dante's uncle ordered the massacre, forged our deaths and kept Samuel alive. He had also documented Dante's warning 3 days before the fire, and Dante's refusal to authorize the killing. The main mystery was almost solved. Almost. At the bottom of Marco's statement was one final line. Dante knew the council intended to take the child, but he withheld the full evacuation order to prevent civil war. The evidence could destroy his uncle. It could also destroy Dante. He read the line without looking away. Broadcast all of it. They will know what you did. They should. Above us, the 7th council member began to raise his hand. The service lift doors opened. Guards flooded the corridor on one side. The river exit sealed on the other. My father had seconds left. Eli stood between us, the living proof every side wanted to control. I connected the tablet to the emergency transmitter and placed my hand over the final command. Dante's uncle appeared on every screen. Choose, Adrian. Give me the boy, or watch your father die. I looked at Eli, then at Dante, then at the button that would expose the massacre, the succession fraud, my father's survival, and Dante's betrayal to the entire city. Hiding had kept my son alive. Pressing that button could start a war around him. But there was no hidden life left to return to. I armed the transmitter. The guards raised their weapons. Dante stepped in front of Eli, but did not tell me what to do. For the first time, the choice belonged entirely to me. I pressed the transmit command. Every screen in the tunnel went black for half a second. Then Marco Bellini's face appeared across the emergency network. His final statement began playing in police stations, fire dispatch centers, transit control rooms, and every news desk monitoring the frequency. Vincent Moretti ordered the Vale family eliminated, Marco said. He forged the deaths of Adrian Vale and his newborn son, imprisoned Samuel Vale, and used the massacre to secure Dante Moretti's succession. The guards facing us hesitated. Their weapons remained raised, but the order holding them together had cracked. I sent the ledger next. Payments, dates, DNA records, the false death certificates. Then I released the final file, the one proving Dante knew the council planned to take my child and chose not to evacuate my entire family. Dante did not stop me. He stood in front of Eli while his own betrayal spread across the city. Above us, the council chamber erupted. The 7th vote never came. Vincent grabbed my father by the collar and dragged him toward the service lift. Kill the transmission, he shouted. Kill all 3 of them. The guards moved. Dante fired once into the ceiling, forcing them back, but he had only 3 rounds left. The evidence is already outside your system. I called through the open lift. If you kill us, you confirm every word. Vincent appeared at the upper landing with his gun pressed against Samuel's head. My father's face was bruised, but his eyes were clear. You think exposure changes anything? Vincent said. Men obey whoever controls the weapons. Not when those weapons make them accessories to your crimes. I answered. Sirens began sounding above the meeting hall. Not Moretti vehicles. Police. Federal units. News helicopters. The information had moved faster than Vincent's power could contain it. Several council guards lowered their rifles. Others turned toward him. Power shifted in front of us. Not because they suddenly became good men, but because obeying him had become more dangerous than abandoning him. Vincent saw it too. He pulled Samuel backward and fired at the transmitter. The bullet shattered the control board, but the upload continued from the tablet in my hand. 92%. Vincent aimed at me next. Dante stepped into the line of fire. Move, Vincent ordered. No, I built everything you have. Dante removed the silver wolf ring from his hand and dropped it onto the tunnel floor. You built it on their bodies. Vincent's expression twisted. And you benefited from every one of them. Yes. Dante looked toward the council cameras still recording. I knew there was a threat. I chose Adrian and the child instead of ordering a full evacuation. I told myself I was preventing a war. The truth is, I decided who was expendable. The admission silenced the chamber. It also stripped Vincent of his strongest defense. He could no longer claim Dante was hiding behind a false story. Dante had exposed himself with him. Vincent's gun shifted toward Eli. Then let your heir pay for your honesty. I moved before he finished. I pushed the black evidence box onto the tracks and kicked the emergency lever beside the signal board. The maintenance train system activated again, but this time I controlled the route. Steel barriers dropped between Vincent and the council guards. The service lift doors began closing around him and Samuel. Vincent fired. The bullet struck Dante beneath the ribs. He fell against the wall, but stayed between the gun and Eli. I reached the lift before the doors sealed and jammed Marco's brass key into the emergency slot. The doors stopped 6 inches apart. Vincent tried to pull Samuel deeper into the chamber. My father drove his heel down on Vincent's foot and threw his weight sideways. The gun slipped. I forced my arm through the gap, caught Samuel's wrist, and pulled. Dante, bleeding, grabbed my waist with one hand and anchored me. Eli seized the back of my coat. For one terrible second, our entire family became a chain stretched across the closing doors. Then Samuel came through. Vincent did not. The doors slammed shut between us. He fired through the metal, but the round struck harmlessly inside the shaft. The upload reached 100%. Every console screen displayed the same notice. Succession records authenticated. Eli Moretti, living blood heir. Vincent's emergency authority vanished from the system. The remaining guards received new orders, not from Dante, but from the council members who now understood Vincent could no longer protect them. They turned their weapons toward the chamber. Vincent Moretti, one of them announced through the speaker, "You are removed from command." His control ended in the same room where he had expected to inherit everything. Police breached the upper hall moments later. I did not watch them take him. I was on the floor beside Dante, pressing both hands against the blood spreading through his shirt. "Stay with me," I said. His face had gone gray. "Eli, safe." He looked past me. Eli knelt beside him, terrified but unhurt. Dante lifted one shaking hand, then stopped before touching him. Even then, he waited. Eli closed the distance himself and gripped his fingers. "You protected me," he whispered. Dante's eyes filled, but his voice remained steady. "I should have protected all of you." Samuel sat against the wall, finally free after 7 years, watching us with grief that no victory could erase. The main truth was out. Vincent had ordered the massacre. Dante had not. But Dante had known enough to act, and had chosen too little. We had defeated the man who destroyed my family, yet the wound between us remained. As medics carried Dante toward the surface, he removed his hand from Eli's before anyone had to ask. He had chosen us over his empire. Whether that made him worthy of entering our lives was a decision he no longer had the power to make. The first consequence of the truth was that Dante woke from surgery without an empire. Federal agents sealed the Moretti estate before sunrise. The council dissolved itself by noon. Vincent was charged with murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and the 7-year imprisonment of my father. Marco's recording cleared us of his death, and the fake custody order became one more piece of evidence against the network Vincent had controlled. None of that mattered to Eli when he stood outside Dante's hospital room, holding the silver wolf crest in his palm. "Is he still my father if he isn't the boss?" he asked. I closed his fingers around the metal. Being your father was never supposed to depend on that. Dante survived, but recovery took months. He gave investigators every account, property record, and private archive he controlled. He did not negotiate to keep the club. He did not ask to preserve his title. When prosecutors offered leniency in exchange for testimony, he accepted responsibility for withholding the evacuation warning and publicly named every family harmed by his silence. My father testified too. Samuel had spent 7 years keeping the succession ledger locked because Vincent could not kill him without losing the only proof capable of legitimizing control over Eli. He had submitted the DNA sample to protect Eli's claim if the worst happened, then created the trail that eventually led my son to the Black Crown. He had never expected Eli to find it alone. "I thought secrets could buy time," he told me after his release. "I did not understand what they would cost you." I understood too well. I had made the same mistake. Our old apartment could not be repaired, and the identity I had built there was exposed. So Eli and I moved into a small house near Samuel's rehabilitation center. For the first time in 9 years, my name appeared on the lease. My real name. Eli returned to school as Eli Vale, with no invented records and no emergency bag hidden beneath his bed. The city knew whose son he was, but Dante ordered no guards to follow him. Instead, he gave me the names of 3 independent security firms and told me to choose one or none. Protection without possession. It was the first promise he kept by surrendering control. He did not ask to see Eli while he recovered. He wrote letters. Short ones. No excuses. No demands. In the first, he told Eli that sharing blood did not give him the right to be called Dad. In the second, he admitted that shielding someone from a bullet was easier than respecting a boundary. In the third, he asked about school and enclosed nothing, not money, not gifts, not another attempt to make himself impossible to refuse. Eli answered when he was ready. He drew the blue train tunnel and 3 figures holding one another across the closing elevator doors. Beneath them, he wrote, "You waited for us to choose." Samuel's evidence restored our family's name and returned property Vincent had stolen, but it could not return the people we lost. We held a memorial at the burned foundation of our old home. Dante came without bodyguards. He stood at the edge of the gathering until I walked over and handed him one white flower. He placed it beneath the surviving section of wall and said every name aloud. When he reached my mother's, his voice broke. I did not forgive him there. Forgiveness was not a switch the truth could flip, but I stopped needing him to be a monster so my anger would make sense. He had loved me. He had failed me. Both things were true. Healing began when I allowed them to exist together. 6 months after the tunnel, Dante signed the final document transferring the Black Crown to a victim restitution trust. The club where Eli had first found him would become a community legal center funded by the assets Vincent's network had hidden. Dante kept no office there, no private room, no crest above the entrance. When Eli asked why, Dante said, "Some doors should belong to the people who were once afraid to walk through them." That evening, he came to our house for the first time. Rain darkened his coat. The surgical wound still made one shoulder sit lower than the other. He stood outside the front door with no driver waiting at the curb, no weapon under his jacket, and no silver wolf on his lapel. Eli saw him through the window and ran into the hall, but stopped before touching the lock. He looked back at me. That pause held everything. The club doors sealing behind us, our apartment door torn from its hinge, the archive doors closing, the elevator trapping Vincent. Every boundary other people had forced open or locked shut. Dante remained on the porch. He did not knock again. He simply waited. "Do you trust him?" Eli asked me. "I trust what he has chosen since he lost the power to force us." "Is that enough?" "It is. Enough to open a door. Not enough to stop paying attention." Eli nodded with the seriousness he used when he was afraid and trying to be brave. Then he turned the lock. Dante's eyes found mine as the door opened. "I am not asking you to forget," he said. "Good," I answered, "because remembering is part of how we keep this family safe." He looked at Eli, but did not step forward. My son crossed the space between them on his own. "You can come in," Eli said. Then, after a small breath, he added, "Dad." Dante closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, he did not look like the man who had once controlled a city. He looked like someone being given something he knew he had not earned alone. He entered slowly, and Eli took his hand. I moved aside, not surrendering my place, but making room beside it. The first time our son walked through Dante's door, he entered a world built on fear and secrets. The last time Dante crossed ours, he did so only because we chose to let him in.